On the show today, we have guest Aditya Nagrath. Aditya is the creator and founder of Elephant Learning Mathematics Academy, which helps students learn years of mathematics over the course of a few months using their system just 10 minutes per day, 3 days per week. With a PhD in mathematics and computer sciences, Dr. Nagrath has spent over 30 years in industry as a software engineer, author, leader, speaker, and a serial entrepreneur, working on everything from atomic clocks to iOS and Android apps to Kindle Fire. As the founder of Elephant Head Software, which won the prestigious J.D. Edwards Award in 2015, he has also done software projects for Pearson, Verizon, Telefonica, J.D. Edwards, and other billion-dollar companies. Get ready for an amazing episode.
I'm educational justice coach Lindsay Lyons, and here on the Time for Teachership podcast, we learn how to inspire educational innovation for racial and gender justice, design curricula grounded in student voice, and build capacity for shared leadership. I'm a former teacher leader turned instructional coach. I'm striving to live a life full of learning, running, baking, traveling, and parenting because we can be rockstar educators and be full human beings. If you're a principal, assistant superintendent, curriculum director, instructional coach, or teacher who enjoys nerding out about co-created curriculum with students, I made this show for you. Here we go. Dr. Aditya Nagrath, welcome to the Time for a Teachership podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Excited for you to be here. I'm really excited about this conversation today. I know I certainly was a person in school who did not do great in math and yet went on to do a lot of statistics in my PhD. So it's like really interesting, right? For me, I'm coming in with the kind of thought of like when we connect to things that kids care about, like, and create this culture of learning, there's learning that can happen and joy that can come out of it. And so really excited to dive in today. As we kind of open it up, is there anything before we dive into my typical questions that you want people to keep in mind throughout the episode or know going in?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you're talking there, I'm thinking about what the definition of math is. And like a lot of people like think about math as I have to execute the calculations, it's addition, it's subtraction, it's multiplication, it's division. But really, mathematics seems to be the tool we use to solve practical problems. And I think that like if we start to look at it that way and as a language, right, the tools, the language of the tools, the name, addition, subtraction, that's the label of the tool which you're then going to use to solve the problem.
I love that because that's exactly why I got excited about math, was because I wanted to learn about student voice and education. And then I was like, okay, well, I need some statistics to figure out how to like make this survey valid, right? And so that was the entry point. I love this idea of tools to solve practical problems. Okay, so taking a step back, thinking about like kind of why you got into this, like what your big dream is, I like to ground the episode in thinking about Dr. Bettina Love talking about freedom dreaming. And she says their dreams grounded in the critique of injustice. And so with that in mind, like what is that dream that you hold for education, for math, however you want to interpret that?
Well, our big vision, like they say when you take leadership courses, you need to have a BHAG, a big hairy A goal, right? And that is to change the way the world teaches mathematics. And the way that we do that is we established a mission. We're going to empower children with mathematics. And if we can empower enough children with mathematics, we're hoping that people turn and look and say, hey, we got to figure out what's going on here. And so like the whole business idea of R&D was a part of the goal. And I don't know where we are with that, honestly.
It's fascinating to think about like just that transformational element of like, we're going to completely change how we teach math. And I imagine I'm thinking about the families as well as the educators here who, I know a lot of educators who have kind of changed the way they teach math is different from maybe how they learned to teach math in school, and certainly from how they learned math as students, which is certainly different from families who experienced math in school and haven't been to teacher school, haven't been part of a pedagogical shift. And there's that communication at parent conference night or family night or whatever that's like, oh, and this is how we're approaching it now. And this is how we can coach students at home. And this is how we're going to work together to build these skills. That is very different because families often come in with that idea that
math is calculations and math is getting the number right and like that is all math is. So I'm curious, is there a particular like mindset shift or like some kind of aha, like, oh, we used to think this way, now we think this way, that you've seen educators, family members, even kids kind of go through to be able to be successful with this?
So, like, I think what you're saying there contains maybe the heart of the larger challenge. So, like, my understanding of it is the standards did shift with the Common Core in order to evaluate a student's level based on the understanding of the language. And so, very specifically for the teacher and parent audience, we're talking about, are they using the tool to solve a problem? So, like, I see a problem in the real world. I understand that I have to multiply these two numbers together to get the solution. And that actually does provide a solution. And so that is different than, can I execute the multiplication, first of all? But second of all, motivates the idea of I should be able to perform the calculation because I have to stop to go find the answer. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta go look it up in the dictionary. Now I know the word. You know what I mean? And so, like, but contained within what you said is this idea of, how do I teach it, right? Which is the same idea as, how do I multiply or how do I add? And so, like, there's a separation then even there between, like, well, I have a process to do something versus I have that idea as a tool to solve an issue. And so, like, while we could change the standards, the harder thing from a leadership perspective is the application of that throughout the 15 million educators across the country. You see what I mean? And so, like, I think that, like, right now, if you look at it from a like, I'm going to zoom out historical perspective, I mean, it comes down to, like, we've just made this shift a decade ago. We've been teaching math for several millennia. And so, like, this is a very small amount of time in the larger picture of things. And at the same time, there's a lot of confusion because of that. And so, like, now is a very particularly interesting or dangerous time as far as math is concerned, because as AI is coming in and as AI looks as if it's going to solve problems, I mean, honestly, it's not actually, I mean, quote unquote, intelligence per se, but it is more of like a human being where we're trying to replicate the pattern, or there was a process, or, and so, like, that's good, but then it also means that the level of the human being has to get to where the standards are saying, so that we can take the solution from the AI and say, no, that's not the right solution. And I mean, it just happened to me just right over here a minute ago. Like, I had something and it was set up a certain way and I found a bug. And now I had to go back and I had to, like, somehow fix the data in order to fix the bug. And, you know, the solution that the AI suggested, it was just misguided. But at the same time, what it said to me provided an idea, was like, oh, you know what? Actually, you're right. We have this other data here that allows us to fix this problem this other way. And now I can tell it the solution. And the part where it takes the idea and goes and implements it to code, it's pretty good at that. That's the nice thing about it. But it also changes the field of computer science back into pure math.
Fascinating, because I'm thinking about what you're saying as what we hear in the humanities as well, like particularly social studies is I'm always thinking about, like, social studies is about thinking, and then I extend it to math is about thinking, and then it's science about thinking. And yes, there are all of these things you could do, right? You can compute things, you could, like, know about events on a timeline, sure. However, we really want to cultivate the skills of thinking and thinking critically, which is cool.
And understanding, and to connect it back to the statistics, like what you do, right? Which statistics are we going to calculate in this particular scenario in order to get an answer to the question, or what, like, right? I mean, typically it's a research study, and this is the question we're posing, and this is the data we're getting to prove that, right? And like, if you don't have a good understanding of that, then you choose the wrong numbers, and did you really prove anything?
And I hope this helps too with educators who might be listening who are thinking, well, I have a high school student who is struggling with like multiplication And so therefore I can't teach them concepts. I mean, I would love just kind of your thinking on how you guys, I'm sure you guys address that a lot, where we have kind of a older age student who is in this higher grade level, however, has not shown proficiency in some basic numeracy or computational skills that is like inhibiting progress, or does it inhibit progress? Can you teach both at the same time? I don't have an intense math background, so I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, so that's actually what we designed Elephant Learning to do. And what we do, and I mean, we only cover through algebra, but that's typically enough to get them to be able to converse with maybe a high school teacher or a middle school teacher. And the idea was could we just fill in the language between where the student is from a standpoint of understanding, and then fill in those gaps to where they are now with just the essential language, right? So it's not like we're teaching, here's how you add multiple digit numbers and you're going to carry the one. We're not doing that. We're focusing on, do you understand the idea of addition? Now, do you understand the idea of subtraction and multiplication, and right? And so that actually appears to be working, because the testimonials that we get back that we're most proud of are, my kid hates elephant learning. Well, I mean, if they say I love elephant learning, it's better, obviously, but they love math now. And the reason why is because they go into class and they can understand the teacher, and it makes sense what they're learning about. And that is actually better. That's what we want. We want the outcome. And so that's how I look at it. And so our system can help. Or if you're a teacher, you just have to understand there's just not a lot of ideas between where the student is and where you are now. So while it feels like an impossible goal, also remember that this student has had that many years of experience in the world. And so it's not like they haven't encountered it. It's just a matter of, we got to label it and we got to get them back into the mindset of, well, let's use this as a language. Let's use this as a tool. Let's use this to solve problems. And we can get that student back on track.
I love that. I'm tying this to a couple instructional concepts here. So one is this idea of like conceptual understanding, I think is huge and overlooked because we focus a lot on discrete pieces of information, like what is 2 times 2, or in other, what is the definition of this vocabulary term, right? And so this conceptual understanding is what I'm hearing from you, really important in math, and I would argue other topics as well. And that I love this idea of background knowledge. One of the common things teachers will say in all subject areas that I coach is, but kids don't have the background knowledge. But kids don't have the background knowledge. But what you're saying is what I often believe, which is there is background knowledge. There are these mathematical interactions and experiences they've had in the world, and we just have to maybe connect them. Does that feel right? And if so, how do families maybe do that at home? Any advice for how to like capitalize on something that might be like a math conversation or could have math language applied to it?
Well, I mean, so like the first problem is understanding the level of the student. And typically, if there is a lack of understanding, there's going to be some anxiety involved, because any time I don't understand something, I start to get anxious, especially the more we talk about it. You know what I mean? And so like the real challenge is like sometimes if you're working top down, here's what we're talking about. Well, did you get this idea? Did you get that idea? You might get too many ideas down and they start flipping out. You know what I mean? And so like I mean, that's the first problem, right? Like, can we stick with it enough to get down to their level of understanding? And sometimes it takes a couple of days, but once they've committed to understanding and once you found their level, right, like you just build them back up is sort of the idea.
Hi, this is Leah popping in to share the free resource for this episode, a free trial of Dr. Nagrath's program, Elephant Learning. You can find it at the blog post for this episode, www.lindsaybethlyons.com/blog/264. Now back to the show.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question anymore is the problem.
Yeah, I think what I'm wondering is like, how do we recognize their level, right? We recognize the concepts we want to teach. We recognize that they're doing a lot of stuff that is math related. How do we support both teachers or I'm thinking families as well? Like, how do we cultivate that outside of school? I know that like programs like yours are certainly helpful. Is there anything?
that to tell you that like what we got to do is then just focus on when it comes up and labeling the ideas, right? And so like the real challenge is that like we were told, hey, you should do the math silently, but like that's the math anxiety perpetuating itself, right? Because if we did it out loud, no one would be scared of it. And it's like, why aren't I doing the math out loud? Wait, so like, um, and the funny part is like, if it came to emotions, you wouldn't ever tell me it's too late to label shame. It's too late to label, like it would never happen. But with mathematics, it's like Jedi training. He's too old, too old to begin the training, and I don't know why.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I love this idea of just you label the thing, right? And then you also consider I think that's interesting that thinking about math anxiety and all of the emotions that come with math, right? I wrote down math anxiety is perpetuated by silence. That's such a fascinating idea. So are there ways that you would suggest either educators or like what you guys do in your program, like kind of illuminate the behind the scenes or like the inner thinking so that it's not a silent activity?
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the elementary concepts. So we're talking about addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, decimals, and percentages. So these are things that human beings actually interact with on a daily basis. And so like I mean, they just have to look and they'll see it. I mean dollars and cents are in decimal points. And so like I think that like once you start looking and you start to say, well, wait a minute, I'm doing so much of this math, right? Because like that's it. When am I ever going to use this? Well, okay, but like if I was doing all the math that I was encountering in a day out loud and someone was around me, they'd be like, man, you're using math all the time.
I am almost envisioning I like families, you can request this from teachers, but teachers, maybe you can give this to families. I'm envisioning something like just taking the list you just said, right? And so, I mean, each grade is going to focus on different components of that, but like, say you have a list of, three even concepts. This is what we're learning for the year, fractions, decimals. Here are examples of that to look for in your daily lives at home and to just name it as such. Like that would be so helpful, I think, for parents who also have math anxiety and are like, oh, I know it's around, but I forgot what it's called, or I don't know. I think that would be so cool to have that communication of like, let's just name the thing and have just a one pager or something that they could like hang on the fridge. That could be so helpful to just kind of illuminate some of the math concepts, like you're saying, that are very elementary. We see them all the time. But
Yeah.
maybe if our brains aren't trained to it, we're not like labeling it out loud.
So what elephant learning does is we do the opposite mapping. At the level of the student, we're giving you things and you might see outside of the system or activities that you could be doing outside of the system to reinforce those ideas. So they're interacting with you on those ideas. And it's at the level, right at the level of the student. So like you're keeping pace with them. And that, I mean, accelerates it obviously, because then as you keep building up on top of it, they still have some of the former ideas coming along with them.
Nice. I imagine also there's a lot of like class wise, I would always say class culture or school culture, but also just like I almost want to expand it to like a culture of math wherever you are and whoever you're interacting with. But I'm thinking about anxiety reduction and enough anxiety reduction or creating kind of the culture of using math or talking about math to reduce the anxiety as much as possible to be able to learn. Any tips or things that you've found that really help reduce that anxiety that teachers or families could use?
Yeah, I mean the main thing, right, is understanding. If the student suddenly understands, now they don't feel the anxiety. And to be honest with you, as you're saying that thing that I said at the beginning of the show about shifting your thought pattern about what is math and like I mean, there's also a lot around like I'm answering wrong and there's like some wrong around that, some shame or some emotions around that. And so like so there's that idea, but there's also this idea that if it's a language and I just have to pick up a couple more words, a couple more ideas, it's not, it doesn't seem insurmountable, right? It doesn't look like there's a learning curve anymore. And that's really the thing, is that like just the way we built the system, almost it's like here's an entire year for addition. It's because, okay, well, we want to get you enough practice with it. You know what I mean? Like we want to put it in some different contexts so you can see it working out. But like, but it's like, what now? You don't understand addition. You're 2 years behind, right? It was like this is insurmountable. But like, if you just start to think of it as like, well, it wouldn't take me that long if I just right, like just focused on the ideas, then not only with the student, the teacher, everyone's anxiety starts to go away because it's like, well, I just got to get this kid a couple of ideas.
I love that concept of just like less is more concepts over like memorizing this entire table or, whatever. I love that you said teacher anxiety goes down too, because that's usually what I see in an instructional coach role is that the math teacher's anxiety is so high that I imagine, even not being in the classroom with them, I imagine that comes through in conversations and interactions with students. So those students, even if they weren't anxious before, now have all of that anxiety coming in from the teacher that, wow, they're really upset I'm so far behind. So I must really, really be behind. And now I'm even more stressed. Fascinating. Wow. Okay, that was a good learning for me. And so I think this is such a good, I mean, it's such a good goal to have that we just completely transform our thinking about how we teach math. And I am curious if there's anything we haven't covered that's been like a challenge you've seen either students, families, or educators experience in making that shift.
Well, I mean, the challenge is they have to also accomplish the goals of the classroom. I mean, the teacher's in a job. I mean, the parent maybe is involved, maybe is less involved. You know what I mean? So it's really hard from the parent side. Typically, if they're coming to us and they're giving us dollars, they're involved to some degree, right? Like at least they gave them the application. You see what I mean? And so, like, I think that I mean, it's a very challenging problem, the one you just posed to me, because the standards are different in every state, because the testing is different in every school, because you know what I mean. So like I don't know immediately, right? Like, and then I was talking to a teacher, and they say, well, each student in IEP has very specific goals, and I'm not supposed to grade two other goals, which I mean that doesn't even make sense because it's like the ball has to go in the hoop. It has to look like it went in the hoop.
Yeah, there are certainly so many, I'm sure from your, perspective of creating the app and all of the, lessons and all of the things, it must be challenging to to fit that into all of the various things that teachers and across states in the nation have to factor into assessment and teaching and everything.
So we focus on the essential topics, and that's the difference. So for a teacher, we're supplemental, which means we're not covering every single standard, at least in elephant learning, right? And so um, so that's where things get a little bit more confusing because like you could have this goal, you could have this mindset that I'm teaching the language, but at the same time, it doesn't help me achieve this sub goal of they have to pass this particular exam. And that's why it's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know how to advise on this because there is no single answer anymore after that.
Yeah, I will say what's heartening is that all the research on like project-based learning or like applying concepts to solve problems does show that like the test results end up being better if they learn that way than if we're teaching the test anyways. So I think that's a good step and push
The
to
project
do
stuff is
that.
always very good because instead of teaching the mathematics in abstract, you're giving them like some sort of concrete goal where the mathematics is relevant in order to achieve that goal. So that, I mean, that almost always works, I think, is what they find out.
I usually at this point in the episode say, what would you encourage the audience to do when they end the episode? Like one quick thing. I have in my mind something that I am thinking about in this conversation, but I want to see what you think it would be.
I'm blanking. And now that you said
Oh,
that,
can I say mine then? And we'll see if you agree. Okay, I was thinking what I might do if I listened to this was actually just make a list of those terms or concepts that I teach if I'm a teacher. And if I'm the family member, I might ask for that list. Does that feel right?
Yeah, why not?
Nice. All right, I'm excited. I want to go teach math now.
Yeah, that works. Why not? Yeah,
And then, as in closing, kind of, I asked two final questions. And I want to give you space to talk about elephant learning because I think it's such a fantastic idea for students to particularly older students. My background is in high school teaching to like help high schoolers, particularly, but of all ages, of course. The first question though is just for fun. What is something that you have been learning about lately? And it could relate to this conversation or be totally different.
what have I been learning about lately? I've been telling this AI to do a lot of things, I'll be honest.
I think a lot of us are learning about AI. That is fair. And then finally, like, can you tell us a bit about elephant learning, like how it works, where people can learn more about it or get in touch with you?
Sure. So Elephant Learning is an online platform for learning mathematics. On average, children in our system learn about a year and a half of math over the course of 10 weeks. They use it just 30 minutes per week. We cover from counting through algebra, which is roughly K through 8, but pre-K through 8. And like for if you're a high school student and you're struggling with mathematics, typically that's because you there was a misunderstanding that occurred in algebra or earlier. And so our system finds that gap or mediates that gap. It does it fairly quickly. The older you are, like the longer you could use it at a time, because like we've seen older kids use it like 30, 45 minutes in a session, which is like an entire week for a 5-year-old. And and so like basically it's going to help you catch up to understand the teacher, uh, hopefully right there in the classroom, but at least at a level where if you're missing one or two ideas, the teacher doesn't feel like um, they have to go back 5 years to help catch you up. So they're not gonna freak out. And so that's very helpful for most students.
And I've seen videos where people are using iPads. Is this an app specifically for iPad, or tablets, or is it like a computer thing as well? I'm thinking about teachers who may or may not have certain devices.
That makes perfect sense. We designed it to work just about everywhere. It runs in your browser. iPad app opens up the browser and we make it native because there's some hooks. But yeah, I mean, like Chrome, Safari, iOS, Android, Kindle Fire. And I mean, for the most part, it feels like a game. When you get to algebra, we shift the game a little bit. Now it's a game of identifying what's true or what's false. And and what it really is the activities that the researchers already found most effective at teaching math as a math conceptually or as a language. And so like what we did was we combined that with advanced algorithms that are able to quickly adapt to the student. So it's an adaptive supplemental tier 1, 2, 3 system.
That is super cool. Okay, thank you for explaining that. I understand it better now already. And then finally, where can people connect with you? Do you have like a website people should go to or platforms or anything?
The best way to get a hold of us is if you're a parent, go to elephantlearning.com. And if you're a teacher, go to schools.elephantlearning.com. And if you end up at elephantlearning.com, there's this classrooms or schools on the top. So you just click that and it'll take you over there. But yeah, there's two different initiatives, talking to parents and talking to schools.
Dr. Nagrath, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
If you're looking for support to help you talk to your child about history, current events, or other high emotion topics, we've got you. Families are now welcome to join EduBoost. Here's how it works. Your kid brings up a topic and you're not sure what to say next, or something happens in the world or in your kid's life and you want to talk to your kid about it, but you're unsure how to bring it up. Immediately, you send us a message on Slack telling us what's going on via text or audio message. Slack can be used on your phone as well as your computer, so you can totally message us from the grocery store checkout line or at 2 a.m. when the question's literally keeping you awake at night. You get a personalized response and any relevant resources within 24 hours from me or my awesome colleague, Cara Prenikoff. Visit lindsaybethlyons.com/families for more information on family coaching.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.